It's always something that I struggled with, even when I was working in my previous role. You always question, like, should I, am I in the right seat? Do they realize that it's just me? Should I be part of these conversations? And then when the position was gone, I was thinking, is my knowledge and experience going to translate in another organization with a different culture? I'm coming from the nonprofit space, and then I was opening up my possibilities to all organizations, and I was worried that, maybe someone would figure it out, figure me out. It was months and months of questioning myself and seeing the possibilities and the job postings that were coming my way, and thinking like, gosh, I could try and do this, or I haven't done this in a long time, or I did it a certain way. What if my way is not the right way? How long would it take me to get up to speed and learning other systems, learning other working styles? Even before I was applying, I was like, I couldn't do this. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe it's too hard. Career craving day.
Yes. Yes. Yay. All right, Candace, I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I know I saw you in the summer and we gave each other a big hug and congratulated you for something that's really rare today, which is landing 3 offers. That is extremely rare. So I'm so happy that you're going to share the behind the scenes of what that looked like for you. I know it was not without its challenges, that's for sure, and lots of lessons learned. And now you are exactly where you're meant to be. So can't wait to dive in. Let's go back, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about you, what you're up to, and then also where you were at in your career journey when we first met.
Okay. So when we first met, it was back in the spring of this year, 2025. I was recently laid off the early part of 2024. I was in a career that I really enjoyed the organization. I was a big part of building the team, and then there was some challenges financially, and there was a large layoff. And as layoffs happen, HR headcount really does become affected in that as well. And so I was part of that layoff, and it was shocking and very sad, thinking I was going to retire there. So I was kind of going through, reflecting on, what does this mean for me? Do I stay with HR? Do I go back to school? I like learning. So I thought maybe this is an opportunity to start fresh and maybe do something else, leave HR altogether. I was part of helping the organization with the offboarding of the other colleagues that were being laid off as well. So I stayed on for a working notice, and it was very challenging, but I felt a loyalty to the organization and to the individuals that I was a big part of hiring. And so that really had me reflecting on, is this the right place for me, or am I better suited somewhere else? So I took some time off. I traveled a little bit, spent time with my family, organized some of the cupboards that needed to be organized, and really just took some time for myself. And then, I realized when I was going through this journey and it was time to start putting myself out there and looking at positions that were being offered on LinkedIn and Indeed and all the different outlets, I realized I suffer from imposter syndrome, definitely. And so it was questioning, can I do anything else? Am I good enough? Was I good enough? And so I spent some time kind of dealing with that. From there, I was just kind of finding my own path, and realizing from the positions that I was reading about and positions that were coming to me, I really want to work with people, and I really wanted to be still a part of the strategic planning of the culture of an organization and advocating for staff and building those policies. So taking that time to reflect, I have no doubt that human resources and people and culture was the right place for me, or is the right place for me. So that's kind of when I said, okay, pedal to the metal. And that's when you kind of came into my life.
There is so much I want to dig into there. First of all, the layoff. Thank you for sharing that because, as you know, you are not the only one that was affected in your last organization. Today, I mean, it is rare to stay at organizations for a long time with the huge impact of AI. We keep seeing more and more downsizing activities. So many administrative type functions, even though you were in a more senior role, are being eliminated and impacted, and so many people are going through similar things. So thank you for sharing. And the next thing is, I always love to ask people, where they want to go next, because this really is a time for reinvention, right? And some people are like you, where they're like, you know what, I'd love some time to really reflect and intentionally choose what my next chapter will be. And others are like, I need a paycheck yesterday. I need to be in a role right away. And they don't even stop to think what type of role they would love to be in. So I love that you realized it was a tough moment for you, realized why you may have had some of those thoughts where you're like, do I leave this, you know, career altogether and restart fresh? Or do I go back into it, with the right organization? So love that you reselected HR as well, right? Because there's so much from your path that is so transferable, right? You really didn't have to start over, and you got to select kind of where you go next and what you wanted that next chapter to look like. Love that. And imposter syndrome. How did you know? Because often there are these negative thoughts that like we don't even realize we accept them as truth. We're just like, yeah, I'm not really good at nothing. Right? And it's like we really believe the things that are complete lies that are coming up. How did you realize that you were dealing with imposter syndrome, and how did you know those weren't facts for someone that might be listening that has also like the negative thoughts rolling through?
I would say for me, it started, I mean, it's always something that I struggled with, even when I was working in my previous role. You always question, like, should I, am I in the right seat? Do they realize that it's just me? Should I be part of these conversations? And then when the position was gone, I was thinking, is my knowledge and experience going to translate in another organization with a different culture? I'm coming from the nonprofit space, and then I was opening up, my possibilities to all organizations, and I was worried that, maybe someone would figure it out, figure me out. And I would say it was a long time. It was months and months of questioning myself and seeing the possibilities and the job postings that were coming my way and thinking like, oh gosh, I could try and do this, or I haven't done this in a long time, or I did it a certain way. What if my way is not the right way? How long would it take me to get up to speed and learning other systems, learning other working styles? So even before I was applying, I was like, I couldn't do this. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe it's too hard. And I would say when I finally, I think I'll always have a little bit of that, right? But I think when I finally saw myself as capable and someone that could be valuable to an organization was when I joined HR Star. And I'm not just plugging it. I really believe that having a network of people going kind of through the same thing made me think, okay, it's not just me. It's not just in my head. And people are finding work. People are getting those 2, 3, 4 interviews even. It may take a little bit of time, but it's happening. So I think when we started working together, a big aha moment for me was the intro pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be completely honest, at first I was like, this isn't going to land me a job, but I was going to do it. I was like, I'm doing it
Yeah.
all. I'm following
Well,
everything.
thank you for trusting at least to try it, right? And if it doesn't work, it
Yeah.
doesn't work. All good. No
And
harm.
I thought it's not going to hurt, but is this going to get me my dream job? I don't know. Writing, it's hard to, even in an interview, or even just writing that intro pitch, you have to talk about yourself and sell yourself. And, you can write down things, but I looked at my resume and my history and my experience and tried to translate that into 90 seconds and the best of in 90 seconds. And reading that back over and over and pitching in interviews and getting positive responses, that was the moment I was like, okay, this is me on paper. This is me selling myself, which you had to come out of your comfort zone a little bit. And it's great to talk about your family and your children and your girlfriends and everybody, that in your life that you love, but to do that about yourself can be tough. So having it memorized and scripted, it even just presented in a confident way. I was like, that's me. I'm not talking about anybody else, and I sound great. And
And
so,
I did this. I really did do all of the things that are in
yeah,
this highlight reel.
Yeah, yeah, and saying it over and over again. And at first, it wasn't easy. So a friend of mine said, read it as if it was brought to you. You're on the other side of it. You're the hiring manager, and someone's bringing this pitch to you, almost like a cover letter, or like just here's a note about this person. Would you like to meet them? And that was it. That was when I said, oh, sounds
I
great.
love that.
Yeah. So
Taking yourself out of it so you don't feel like, oh, you're tooting your own horn or, this is someone else. Would you hire them? And what was the answer? Like, yes.
Well, yeah, and I feel like I had to almost do that the first few times, right? That I'm not talking about myself. I'm selling you this amazing person that has all of these transferable skills and all this great experience. And then it just eventually, I was like, no, no, no. I'm going to talk about me. This is going to be about me.
Oh, I love that. I
Right.
love that you pushed yourself and it's whatever works. Like if at first it doesn't feel natural to say all of these like what was the cringiest line for you? Give me one. Was it like I was promoted or like I know that one throws people
Yeah.
for a loop sometimes.
Promotion was a big one because in my
Yeah.
my journey in HR, I started as an office manager, and then I became like the mother hen, and then we didn't have any HR. We didn't have a health and safety team. It was a very uh, small organization. Saying that I advocated for an HR department and built the department as one person and then built a team and then talked about all of the things that we did strategically. It was almost like we were this tiny little organization, and then you have 90 seconds. So within a few seconds, I'm talking about 3-year strategic planning. We're talking about building the team, multiple people and what each person was doing and what my role was and KPIs. And so it's almost like, they're really gonna believe that in 8 years she was able to create an entire department and a people and culture division and EDI and all of these things that they never had before. So yeah, that
And
was
you did. But
I
the
did.
truth is you did. So it's like, I've heard that before. That's actually so interesting. I've heard someone else say, are they really going to believe this? I'm
Yeah,
like, well, is it true? So it's like
exactly.
if you believe it and you say it and it's true, then there should be no reason someone else doesn't believe it. And if they ask questions about it, freaking amazing. You can tell them more because it's true and you can go on in more detail about that in your next kind of set of questions. But I love that tip. I've actually never thought of that before. Like if you have to do whatever it takes in order to do the person you're speaking to the service of understanding truly all of the amazing things that you've done. Because if you don't say it, they'll never know and they'll just hire the next person that will say it
Hmm.
even if they have less accomplishments than you do, right? And it does feel a little uncomfortable, but even if it means the first time you say it, you act like you're talking about someone else until you really feel confident, even if that's what it takes. And then I heard you say you started seeing it was well received. So the fear kind of goes away once you test it in a real interview, see that the response is good. And then, of course, it's so much easier to continue to use that in the future once you've tested it. So, what were the signs that you could tell things were going well when you were delivering this new version of your pitch and your story?
Well, there was one interview in particular where the hiring manager came in. It was in person, and they didn't have any questions for me. They just had my resume in front of them and said, and just kind of circled key points that he, wanted to elaborate on. And the first thing he said was, "I don't have any questions, but tell me about yourself." And leaned back, and I was like, "Well, this is
Always,
it," because
always.
yeah, because he's not going to ask me like structured questions. So I have to, this is my moment to strike. And it was a very casual conversation. Like I said, there were no structured questions. And the conversation quickly turned to the interviewer telling me about the organization and telling me what things they were looking for and wanted to accomplish by having this new position or this vacancy filled. And I realized he was selling the organization to me. And I,
Yes. Oh,
okay,
that is the
yeah,
best.
yeah, it was,
So you're sitting there. First of all, you're in person, which means you're vulnerable. You don't have your computer screen with your pitch written out perfectly,
yeah.
exactly the way. You are just you sitting there. I'm assuming no notes, just delivering who you are.
Hmm.
And I love that you saw that it was so well received that this person's like, okay, let me tell you more. And, that pitch, some people think it's just that first impression or it just rips off the band aid of the conversation. But often in a situation like you were in, what it often does is lead the conversation in the direction you are directing it to go.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because if you talk about, let's say, building an HR department from scratch, let's just say, and then that is something they're looking for you to do in the new role too, often they'll start asking you more about the things you've accomplished. And it is the best when your own introduction of the things you're the most proud of are the things that you're talking about the whole interview. I mean, that is a great way to go, right? Instead of like, hey,
It,
Candace,
it
tell
was the
me
only
why we
thing that
should hire you, right? Like it's like,
exactly. It was the only thing that was really structured, sitting in my car before I went in. That's what I reviewed was the
yes.
intro pitch. And of course, the website and just kind of quickly, and I had done all of that research before, but did a quick kind of overview, 15 minutes before I went in. And really the only time I really had to talk about myself and what I had done and what I accomplished was in that 90 seconds. And the rest was, that person telling me what kind of projects and what kind of goals they're looking to achieve. And I just relaying, yes, my experience, has me doing this and doing that. And I have experience with this. And so it was definitely a conversation. It wasn't even an interview anymore.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the first time I was ever hired in HR, that's how it went too. And I was so nervous because I truly didn't have HR experience. So I'm like, if they ask me about anything, I truly like don't know what to say, right? There's nothing really to talk about.
Right.
And she slid my resume to the side and she's like, let's just have a conversation
It's like,
about like what it would be
yeah,
like to work together. And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that. And then of
yeah.
course it takes the pressure off and it's so nice. But something else you said I want to dig into a little further. It's like there was a two-way conversation happening, which I know you can't always control, but often when things are going well, it's a very good sign that it's conversational. And the other side is then telling you maybe their issues, the projects, kind of what's keeping them up at night, what you would be supporting, what you would be solving. But what you said was so interesting, which is that you were able to connect it to your experiences and be like, yep, I've done that, and this is how I did it. So, any tips for someone on that piece? Because people find that awkward too. Because, I mean, you could just respond with, oh, that's nice. Like, okay, you're doing that. That's nice. But instead, you were like, oh, I have done this. And you're proving that because you've done it before, you have the track record to do it again. So, any tips for someone that might be struggling with like turning it into a conversation?
Yeah. I would say even if it's something you haven't had experience with and you haven't done, if you're an HR professional at any level, you have some HR education, right? Whether you're entry level and you may not have the hands-on HR experience in an organization, but you have the knowledge, I would continue just talking about like make it almost like a brainstorming, like here are some possibilities. And I think, anytime you can relate it back to something that you've already done and make it translate to that organization. So obviously do your homework about the organization that you're and the person that you're meeting with, whether it's through LinkedIn or even just on their website. Having some knowledge about the industry is super important. One thing I often say in interviews is I look at HR as, in the Wizard of Oz, there's, the guy behind the curtain and he's, moving all the gears and pressing all the buttons and everybody's looking up at Oz on the screen. We're the guys behind the curtain. So anything that you do in HR, it doesn't matter if you're going from a nonprofit to a profit, if you're going from a logistics industry to a makeup industry. Every organization still needs some kind of standard structure, whether it's policies, engagement, the strategic focus. It all translates. So,
Yes.
and I realized that through this process, thinking, well, I've pigeonholed myself because I have so many years of experience in this one industry or nonprofit, but it is transferable. It's probably one of maybe sales too, but it's one of those departments that is needed in every organization, and it can very easily be moved to another your experience can be transferred into another organization that you know nothing about, right?
Yes.
So I would constantly just speak to your HR practices and how they would help the organization, talking about advocating for staff. And, a lot of the time, especially if you're looking for a more senior role like I was looking for, you're meeting with senior leaders. And many times they need someone with a high emotional intelligence to come and do the things that they can't do, right? They're focused on the bottom line, they're focused on like profit and loss, whatever that is, and they need someone that can come in and think about all the other things that the staff need to be engaged to do their jobs. And that's where that Wizard of Oz mentality comes in. We'll be behind the screen and we'll build the foundation to allow you to focus and do the things that you need to do for whatever the end result is that you're trying to achieve. And so that's what I would constantly talk about. Whether I know the industry or not, find out how we as an HR team would support you to achieve your goals. Yeah.
Yes. I love that so much because we often think, oh no, I just worked at this one company. It's very specific. And who knows if any of this I'll be able to use in the future, or who knows if anyone will think this is valuable. And I think you know this, but each time I moved organizations in my career, the 3 times, they were in completely different industries. And each time I was terrified. Like the last time I moved from telco to nuclear energy. And I was like, oh my goodness, they're going to ask me some stuff. I don't even know what. Like, I don't know anything about nuclear or energy. Like, I
Right.
don't know any of it.
Right.
And then I had to sit back and think, okay, what is transferable? And I just came to the same thing that I came to the last time I moved industries, which is HR is HR is HR. And they actually don't need me to be a nuclear engineer. That's not what they're hiring me for. They're hiring me for a very specific set of people skills or
Exactly.
talent skills. And I
Yes.
can be the expert in that. And then I can exactly help to execute on some of the things that they are not experts in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like knowing your area of expertise, owning that will give you confidence, even if you're switching industries.
Yeah.
Because truly, at the end of the day, it is so similar. Like, do you find now you moved industries? Is it a lot more similar than you thought through the interview process?
Yeah. Actually, it very much is. And I think that's like if you were to say it in one line, how do you present yourself? It would be the expert in your space. Come
Yes.
as the expert in your space because they're looking for someone that's going to put the pieces in place that they're unable to do, right? They want, in my case, being in a more senior leadership position, they wanted someone that was going to take their HR team from here to here. So speak about that. How can you do that? If you've done it before, give examples. But if you haven't, how would you? That's all.
Yes.
Be the expert in your space. Yeah.
Yes. And you do, to your point, you have to prove one of those two things. Either you've done it before so you could do it again easily, or you know exactly how you would, and you can show them that future of you doing that, whatever that thing is that they need done, right? And the more that you know about the organization, you in your interview, you had some gold because you had someone sharing like pain points and projects and things that were on their mind, which is amazing because then you can get into their head in the way that you know exactly what's on their mind and you can show them like authentically how you've done that. It's
Mm-hmm.
so much easier than kind of like stabbing in the dark where you don't know what's going to hit, what's going to resonate, and talking about all these other projects that may not be something that they need support with. So I love that. Okay, so there were a couple aha moments. I heard the pitch changes everything. It changes the confidence. It changes even which questions you're going to be asked going forward or where the conversation goes. And then I also heard even when you're changing industries, that might be something you're like not as confident about, but at the end of the day, there's a way where you can show people that you've done it before or you would figure out how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What would be another aha moment that you went through in that interview process?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that really resonated or made a shift for you in your job search?
I would say during the interview process, especially if it is also a structured, we have 9 questions. We're going to go through and just take turns asking you questions. You answer the question, we move on to the next. how do you set yourself apart from the person waiting in the reception area to be answered or to be asked those same 9 questions? And I think what works for me and what my aha moment was is I like that the interview that I had where it was a conversation, a brainstorming session. And I think what created that also was I was also asking questions. I wasn't just
Yes.
answering questions. And you can kind of take some control of how the interview goes by someone asks you a question, you answer it, but you can elaborate by saying, what does your current HR manual look like? Or when was the last time it was updated? If there's a question around policies and how would you revise them? Well, tell me, what the issues are that you're looking at. Because then it becomes a conversation and you almost feel like you're already in a meeting planning out the strategy.
Yes.
It's also a quick, in-depth, and personal way of finding out more about the organization that you could possibly be joining. So I think
Yes.
asking questions as well. Don't wait till the end where they say, "Do you have any questions?" Ask them all.
Sometimes there's no time,
Yes.
right? Like sometimes they're like, oops, we went over, like, so sorry. We do have another meeting, right? And you're like, wait, what? I
Yeah.
love that. So it's like, this is the most advanced interview kind of skill, I think,
Mhm.
when you're confident enough to answer fully and talk about, let's say, that manual, right? Creating a process or a manual. And then you're like, hey, is this resonating with you? Like, do you also have this project on the go, or have you recently done that as well? And often what you'll find, because HR is HR, like, yes, they've either just recently done that or they've thought about that or they're going to want you to do that next. And if they're asking you about that thing, they're likely asking for a reason. So the
Exactly.
more you can get information from who you're speaking to, the better your responses could be in that moment. Plus, it takes the pressure off of you, and
Yes.
people love answering questions. Like, people love that. Now, if you see the audience is not resonating with that and they're not loving it and they just want to move on, like, sure, you can adjust. But I feel like that is the highest level of interviewing where you're like,
Mm.
I feel confident enough to make this a conversation. And that shows a preview of what it would be like to truly be in that planning meeting with you, right? Or to work with you next Monday.
But
Okay,
yeah.
amazing. So
Yeah.
interviews were off obviously going well. I mean, these all sound like great interviews. Walk me through what happened next.
So I'll go back a little bit and say
Yes.
that we met, I want to say in April of 2025. And I had told myself I'm going to really start looking in June, right? But I wanted to kind of meet with you and kind of get the ball rolling. But I was really not going to really put any pressure on myself until June. So before that, my own style, I guess, was meeting colleagues, past colleagues that I had worked with or connected with that were in the HR space, and just having coffee and talking about their industry and plugging myself and hey, if anything else comes up. And really, it's a tough time for people, to have to put yourself out like that. And especially when you're in HR because you were the one doing all the recruiting and now you're on the other side of things. And for me, it had been 8, 10 years since I had been here before. So I just thought I'm just going to take some pressure off and just connect, just make some connections. And I started making some connections on Facebook and that kind of thing. And then June came and I said, okay, get out of the pool, get some work done. And I used LinkedIn as like my part-time job, just building those connections and started joining our Wednesday meetings and thing really was happening. And then I started really feeling like I'm doing something wrong. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. Nothing's happening. And then I had to say, okay, Candace, it's been 2 weeks. It's been 3 weeks. Like, it's not, they're not just going to bang down the door. Just give yourself some time. But everything just kind of happened all at once.
It usually does. That's the interesting thing. And like, those 2 weeks, if we just pause there, typically
Yes,
what's happening is like you're putting yourself out there, which is so uncomfortable on your end, but you have to think of it like the other end, they may still be in the pool. Or they're
correct.
thinking, okay, after 3 weeks, that's when I'm going to review all of the resumes at once and then start like selecting people for interviews. And sometimes I've had people that got an interview request 4 minutes after they submitted an application. This is never typical. That is like such an
That's why I
anomaly.
waited.
Yeah, that's what you wanted. You're like, let's interview now. I applied a minute
Yeah.
ago. But it does often take like 3 to 4 weeks to
Sure.
even hear back,
Yeah.
especially in the summer where things tend to move a little bit slower and through the holidays, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been a couple weeks. You were like, ooh, maybe something's wrong. And I remember you did message me and you're like, maybe something's wrong. And then I
Yes.
asked you for some more data inputs and I'm like, okay, I think you're fine. I think we're good. Taking a look at everything again. And I'm like, keep doing what you're doing. Have faith. Okay.
Yep.
Then what happened?
I really think even just redesigning my LinkedIn connection, so that was really good. But I started getting those, thank you for applying, but we've moved on to someone else. So that was like so discouraging. And then someone reached out to me, I believe like a headhunter from an agency, and said I have this position and I'd like to have a call with you. So I had a call with that individual first, and then I didn't hear back for a few days. And then in that time, I received another call from a very big, very exciting organization. I didn't take that position, so I won't even name it, but I was thinking, oh my gosh, like they don't see the imposter syndrome dripping all over me, but it's okay. And then there was a third. And so I received a call back from the first person I met with and said the president would like to meet you. And then I got another call from the second one saying we'd like to do a second interview. So I had that one scheduled. And then the third one, I'll tell you about the third one in a sec. So I met with the president, and that was the day where we just had a very casual conversation, talked a lot about the organization, what they offer. I almost felt like in that moment, I felt like I had the upper hand. I don't know, that might be a little harsh, but
I was going
it's,
to ask you what that did to your confidence to have
yeah,
three options on the table and to see things are going well and you're invited back. And you did have the upper hand when they're trying to sell you in that
yeah.
conversation. Like, hey, we're
It's
great here too.
Yeah, I will say having those other opportunity, like interviewing opportunities, you would think in the moment you're like, okay, I'll jump back in the pool and everything will be fine. But it wasn't like that. It was, boy, okay. So now it's like the blind date feeling, like I hadn't interviewed in a long time. And
Right.
the world had changed. We had been through that great resignation. We had seen a drop in many organizations. Many of them had freezes, and the way people interviewed had changed. And luckily, I was on the other end of that for a portion of the time, but nothing really prepares you for that after being out of that game for so long.
Almost a decade. Yes. And the world had really changed. Even the technology, like a decade ago, all of your meetings would be in person. I mean, there's no question about that. Maybe a phone call. Zoom wasn't even a thing to
No.
interview, right? So it was barely a thing for meetings. And then now it's like you're going into this whole new reality. Okay, got it. So I always assume like, ooh, this is exciting, so many interviews, but you're right, being in it, it's terrifying. It's like fear of rejection. What if you say the wrong thing? What if you mess up the opportunity? There's so many things that can happen, but I'm so glad you didn't just have one option where it had to have taken some pressure off to be like, okay, well, if I mess this one up, maybe I'll land it the other time,
Yeah. And it was
So,
funny
okay.
that the second option was, like I said, this great company, and I was really excited about it. The first option was exciting because it was my first, and I,
Right.
I was in the door, right?
And they
Then
reached out to you, which is awesome. Yeah.
yeah. So I went to the first interview feeling like I had something in my back pocket. If this one doesn't work out, it's okay because my eyes were kind of on that one. And then I got in front of the president of this organization, and the conversation was so exciting. And I felt so good about the opportunity that I almost wanted to cancel everything else, but I knew I couldn't.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank
Yeah.
goodness you
Oh,
didn't,
God.
because you never want to put all your eggs in one basket in this market.
Right.
And multiple offers, even if you don't want the others, can help you with negotiating so much with the one that you do want. So I love that. But I know what you mean. You're sort of like, I'm not interested. But that sometimes makes you even better in the interview because there's less pressure and you can be yourself.
That's exactly what
Right?
happened. That's
Yeah.
exactly. I felt so the second interview I really felt like, okay, I know how to do this. I think I can do this. And I kind of forgot about the like structured questions, right? Because I had this conversation the first time that when I went into the second interview and it was structured questions, it didn't freak me out as much as I was freaking out the first interview. First interview in
Right.
10 years, I was freaking out. But it went so well that it just helped the other ones just kind of flow. That one interview, I had two interviews after that, so three total, and I still had my eyes on that first conversation. And I don't know, I know it was because of the person that I met, the relationship that we were already building, and the organization, like everything just kind of clicked.
You know your
Knew it.
people and you can sense
Yeah.
it. And we often know a lot more than we give ourselves credit for.
Hmm.
In that time, I remember there was like a big energy shift from you because so soon after the first message you sent where you're like, I'm not sure, like should I be doing something different or I'm not sure it's working. Then your next message was in the group chat and it was so positive. I forget what it was exactly, but it was something like you didn't have any offers or anything at that time, but you were like, I know something really great's about to happen. It was like very motivated and I could tell you were fired up. Like you were feeling great. So what happened with your mindset at that time?
I think, it's just, and this would be advice I would give to anyone that's going through this now is, and it sounds so cliche, but I really believe you have to be patient and you have to be kind to yourself.
Mhm.
You have to allow the time. Don't give up. I mean, again, it sounds so cliche, but have a couple days where you just want to give up a little bit. That's okay. Take a break. If you feel like it's really just affecting your mental space and, you're saying things to yourself that you wouldn't let anyone else say to you, take a break. That day you need to take that day off, and regroup because it will come. And that's, I think, where I was at, was that I had to allow myself some patience and some grace. It wasn't happening, but I was seeing it with the group that we had at that time over the summer. People were starting off like, I don't have anything, and then they were starting to get multiple offers or interviews, and I was like, okay, I'm in this group too. My time will come.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, I still have the group to chat with. And I think if I go back to the very first session, it wasn't even like an HR star session, but it was an introductory about what you were offering and what this program provides. And you started off by asking questions. How long have you been looking? How many times have you applied for positions? How many responses have you received? And I'm just watching, I've been looking for a year and a half. I've replied to 150. I was like,
I'm not alone.
no, I was like, oh gosh, this is going to happen to me. And I was
Worried
worried
that you'll be in the same boat
I
later.
was going to be in the same boat.
No,
And then
okay.
when I joined, and right away I kind of made some connections on LinkedIn. I said, hey, I'm joining the group, see you Wednesday, and those kind of things. And so putting faces to the names and seeing those same people saying, okay, it clicked, it worked, it happened. Yes, it took me a little bit of time, but it happened. And there was one individual who reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to do like a one-on-one and let's just cry it out?
So
And I
great.
said, sure. And so we did. She was from Boston, I believe, and she had been looking for a while. But the thing that we don't hear about is, she took a break, or she did some little things on the side. And so hearing someone's long journey, you have no idea what they're doing in between that. You don't know if they're traveling or they're taking time off or they're working, on the side doing other little temp positions and things like that. So that's kind of what I had to keep telling myself is everyone's journey is different. Someone's been looking for a year. It doesn't mean that they're, nonstop. We don't know. You don't know what their story is, and you don't know what their journey is, and you don't even really know what they're looking for, right? Everybody's different. So I think that's when I shifted back in the summer to say, like, this will come. And if it doesn't come now, that's okay. If it doesn't come in a year from now, it's got to be okay. It's got to be, because that's what it is. And I'm not going to let, the frustration of not finding that dream job in this moment also impacts my personal life and my
Mhm.
family. And I want to be happy. And I look back at those months where I wasn't working. What a blessing it was to be
Mm.
able, like, I've built so many connections through HR Star, through LinkedIn, and you guiding me on how to make those connections, not just like clicking the button and saying, okay, network connection, but going on their page, reading their posts, connecting with people, learning about different organizations. I had to go through that to really appreciate where I am now. I really did. So
Mm-hmm.
I
I
think
love
that's what
that.
I
And
should.
those connections will be with you for the rest of your career.
I
I
agree.
love what you said about happiness. When we have an area of our life where we're focused on and we really want to be in that next chapter, we want to be working in the role already. I mean, it is draining to apply, and the cry it out is sometimes required, right? And it's like, we want to be in that next chapter so bad, but what we forget is the reason we want that. At the end of the day, we all just want happiness. And sometimes when that unhappiness drips into the other areas of our life, like with our kids, with our family, we show up differently. We're a little bit more agitated. We're not our true selves. Like, that is really where, it takes a toll on many areas of our life.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened next? Because I know you're like, things happened quickly when they happened, and they all happened at once when they happened.
Yes, they did happen. So two offers came back to back, and then the third person called for a third or a second interview. And it's funny that the third position was nonprofit, very similar industry and organization to where I was before. So I thought I should go there. I would just slip into the role and do exactly what I was doing before. But it was out of the three, it was the bottom three for me.
Mm.
So that was an aha moment as well, is I didn't feel the same kind of connection, and maybe it was because I had that break in time. If that position had come to me during my working notice or a few weeks after I had left the organization, I would have scooped it up, and who knows where I would be now. But it wasn't. Two offers came in at the same time, one from an incredible organization that anyone would dream to be a part of, and the other one was from the first interview. That was a conversation where I just felt like we were brainstorming. We were already planning. And that was the position that I took. That was the position that I
Wow.
accepted. And we negotiated a little bit, and I felt really respected in that process and comfortable enough to be able to ask for different things and make the package an exciting one. But what was really interesting about that was when I walked into that interview, the position was for manager of human resources. And when I received the offer, which was the morning of driving to the career creative day,
Yes.
the position was director of human resources.
I
And the
remember
pay
seeing you
scale,
that day. I'm literally getting goosebumps again. And I couldn't even believe it because you told me live, like while we're there at the event that was August. So it's like you started going hard in June. Then that morning you received one of the third offer, which is so exciting. And they surprised you with the title, which just shows you must have gone so above and beyond in the process. You didn't even ask for that, and they valued you at that next level. And like, that's them going above and beyond to say, like, we really want to lock this in. You probably do have more options right now, right? So that is a
maybe,
fantastic feeling in this market.
yeah, it was great.
Congratulations again. I know you've been in the role for some time, but I love the resilience that you had through the process from going from a layoff to taking the time that you needed, which I really respect and value. It's not easy leaving money on the table and not working and respecting. But now looking back, you're like silver lining, like, thank goodness I did that. Because when else would you have the summer off to enjoy the summer? I know some of it was stressful and applying and all that, but that's very, very rare with limited vacation. And then everything happens for a reason. What was it like for you? I know some people feel guilt about turning down great offers and like wondering what if. How was that and like saying no to the other two?
That's a great question. I haven't thought about it until this very moment.
That's okay. That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. That means you're so confident with like your selection. You're not wondering
I
like
think
what would
so.
it be like?
Yeah, I think I haven't had a moment where I've been at my desk and thought, what would have happened if I had taken that other position?
Oh,
Not
I love
once.
that.
Yeah,
Okay, good. Okay,
not
good.
once.
I always have to
Yeah,
coach people through that. Like, don't worry. This, at the end of the day, it's about you. Like, select the one that's right for you, and don't worry about the impact. And this is the way. So, the other thing that really stands out to me was you ended up going with the company that respected you and saw you as a human being through that process instead of asking the nine scripted question that they would have asked anyone. They wanted to have a conversation. They wanted to tell you more about their organization. And that built a loyalty with you, obviously, and of the start of a relationship, which is so important. And how is it going now? You're in the role. It's been months.
Mhm.
It's been a good while. What is it like?
Really fulfilling. I'm really, really happy. I'm also gonna, I've been learning how to toot my own horn, so I'm gonna keep doing
Yeah.
that. I'm the first female senior leader that the organization has ever had.
Wow, good for you. And what is it like to
Um,
be the only?
well, it's a start. It's a start. And I think the human resource team is all female, which I think is common, but not everywhere, which is great to see. But I think having a voice at that table, right? So they've never had a human resources professional being part of strategic conversations. And so they were making a lot of strategic decisions based on everything but the human resources.
Wow. Okay, that's a big
And
shift.
big shift. And I didn't have to advocate for that. That was, I think, the reason they made the shift from HR manager to HR director. And maybe it was part of our conversation, or maybe it was something that they were already thinking about going into this process. But what I understand and what I see from the rest of the senior leaders that I work with is they do value HR, and they do see that the organization is growing to a place where human resources needs to have a seat at that table, and we need to be a part of making some of those decisions because the organization believes in people first. And that Wizard of Oz mentality, I'm behind the curtain so that you can go off and do what you need to do because I've created the foundation and the tools for you. And they see that. They see that
I
human
love that.
resources is more than just planning a party, celebrating diversity, and making sure the organization is safe and standing. There's more to it. There's more development, more engagement. If we can invest in the people in the organization, it becomes an investment in the profit or whatever the end
Yeah.
result we're trying to achieve is. And I don't think that was ever something that was considered. So I'm very happy here. I have no regrets. I mean, I did have other offers, and until now, I've never really thought about what it would have looked like if I had made a different decision.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very happy.
Beautiful. And it's like it sounds like a big shift in the organization with the first strategic HR role and you being the first woman to represent that as well. That's amazing. And for it to be going well, because that there could be growing pains in there. That's fantastic. Now you're doing something cool for the HR community. I want to ask you about that. Tell me more about that.
Yes. So when I joined back in the end of August, just a few weeks after you and I had met, I started and I met my team and quickly identified the team is very junior. Amazing group of HR professionals, very eager to learn, and because they're so new to the HR space, entry level positions, coordinators, administrators, recruiters, I identified that there was a bit of a gap in their experience and their knowledge. They're very tactical, day to day tasks, and not a lot of room to collaborate or brainstorm or, come up with different ideas and think outside of the box because they have to be very tactical in their work right now. And so I reached out to the team and said, how would you feel about building an HR network of individuals like yourself, entry level HR professionals that just once a month, come together and let's chat about some pain points or some tips and tricks. Or, we had this great event and this really worked, or we rolled out this really great, learning and development tool. And, here's how we incentivize it. Or, our policies, we've got 50 policies and we need to find ways to make this user friendly, easy to understand, and something easy to follow. And they were like, we can do that. We can do that. How do we do that? And so we started kind of as a group, just of ourselves, to talk about what are the things that we don't know, right? And we only know what you know. And so from there, we've started with a little bit of training and some webinars. And I reached out during couple months ago, a couple weeks ago now, I reached out on LinkedIn and just put a little post asking if there was anyone out there that would be interested in joining a monthly HR.
Post.
Yeah,
There
that
was a huge outreach, right?
huge outreach. I'm still, and if anyone's listening, I'm still going through all of the messages. I'm going to get to everybody, but there is a need for this.
Yes. People have asked me actually to put together a community before like that, where it's like,
Amazing.
okay, we landed the role, but like, what
Sure.
now? We're in it. Like, what do we do now? And sometimes there are people that are in the roles as the only
Yeah.
HR person, like building a
Right.
whole
Right.
department. And they're like, well, I've never done some of this before. I need to speak to others. So that's amazing. And there's obviously a huge need. So what are you doing with that? Have you started the monthly meetings? What is next
So we
for that?
haven't started. So from that, and I was very clear to say we're looking for entry level HR professionals. I think this has become bigger than me. But I'm going this information that I have and these individuals that have reached out, there is something here, and I'm
Yes.
compiling all the information. I'm slowly kind of reaching out to everyone and letting them know kind of the status and where we're at. I think there may be multiple groups from this list of
Yes.
data. I have senior leaders reaching out. I have people that are starting out in HR. I have supervisors and managers and generalists, everyone's reaching out saying, how do I get involved? I love this idea. How can I help? Or
Yeah.
I've done something like this before, and how do, I can share with you, agendas and things that we've done. And so it's a lot of information to get through, on top of my exciting new full-time job and managing
Right.
a
Which
new
you're
team.
trying.
I've got
Right.
that. So I'm putting together all the information, and I think it's going to be a step back and kind of I'm compiling the information by title, by organization as well, because there's I really, for my team, and that's the priority right now, is finding individuals in similar industries so that we're kind of talking the
Yes.
same talk. And so building
Yes.
that community first is my priority. And then I want to look back and say, okay, I mean, I would definitely benefit from, senior leadership connection. Absolutely.
Yes, everyone
Especially,
would. Well, look at
yeah,
what you said about HR Star and the group where you had people that were going through the
huge.
same thing as you. And now this is a version of the same. It's just not job search related, but you have people that are also in positions like you that are also trying to figure it out, and maybe you're also developing a team. And even like at the C-suite, people often are in groups. They're in these mentorship groups with like-minded people in like similar industries as well. So I love what you're doing. Where can people reach out to you if they're interested? Maybe there will be a future LinkedIn group or something that you create, but
Yes, so I would say, for right now, you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn page, Candace Jarvis, and then I think that's the next step, is maybe having a sub page that we can go to, and maybe we'll start populating with some questions, and then
yeah.
my hope is to be able to build these subgroups, massive one, maybe there's a big massive group once a year where we all kind of come together and just celebrate all of our wins. Don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but
But it's unfolding. There's something there. There's something there. And I've had a feeling about that as well. And like have been asked about it. I know, well, obviously seeing there's like thousands of people that will register for the free events that I hold. And each time, like just seeing the chat of people going through similar things, I'm always blown away. Like no one is alone. Whatever it is that you're facing right now in your job, guaranteed there are tens, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of people that are feeling the same way or that need the same support. So that's amazing. I love that. Okay, keep me posted. Happy to continue sharing as well. Once you have more, happy to plug it on my LinkedIn. But fantastic.
thank you.
I have one last question for you. This was such a good
Okay.
conversation. So many takeaways. What would you tell yourself months ago when you were trying to make the decision to possibly join HR Star or not? What would you tell yourself now that you've gone through the process and you know how it ends up? But what would you tell maybe someone else going through that same decision point right now?
I would say there's comfort in knowing your situation isn't singular, and like you're not alone. And I would use your social outlets to connect with people, because sometimes hearing someone else's story, you can get comfort in that, knowing, okay, I am not alone and someone else is going through it. And maybe just having that support is a really good thing. And a group, whether it's HR Star, whether it's, just reaching out to a friend, having coffee, or LinkedIn, whatever it is, I think it's important to share what's going on, release it a little bit. But when you doubt yourself, as I have, and I will always struggle with that imposter syndrome, when you doubt yourself, speak to yourself the way you would speak to a colleague that was coming with the same concerns, or a friend, and be kind to yourself and remind yourself that you will always bring value. No one can take experience or education away from you. You gain it and it's yours for life. You can lose the sports car, you can, whatever it is that you gain from success can be taken, except for experience and education, and build on that. You will bring value to an organization. You just have to find that fit. Just stick with it.
Yes. I love that. What an amazing note to end on. I think anytime I've had those imposter syndrome thoughts, which are, by the way, every week still. So every time I have them, I remind myself, like, oh, I'm just pushing myself to a level where I'm uncomfortable. And that's a good thing, because that means you're growing. That means you're not doing the same old, that just feels comfortable, and you could do it 1,000%. So Candace, I love everything that you're doing for the community. I loved celebrating your amazing story in person and today. And thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey and being so transparent and vulnerable. I know that there are people listening to this that need to hear this message, and there will be something. I'm sure you'll get people reach out to you with things that resonated.
And thank you for inviting me to have this conversation. And I found it really great for me to kind of go back in time and think about that. And, you just kind of walk away from it and put it out of your mind. But it's been a nice process to go back and think about, where I was to
Or
where I
you've
am
come.
now.
Those doubts to like where you are now, just crushing it. So love it. Love it. Thank you so, so much.
All right.